Once again, we are going to kick off a new patch with another banner rerun. With concerns over power creep growing with each patch, the question of whether or not older characters are still worth wishing for is now more important to answer than ever. Hey guys, I'm Epic Edge and welcome to another Passer Poll video, this time featuring Klee, the adorable lolly bomber. Considering Klee was released as the first 5-star after the launch day Venti banner, the question on most people's minds is if she is still worthy of your hard-earned primogems. Let's find out. So as you can see here, this is Klee's normal attack. It is a 3-hit chain that involves her throwing her patented bombs. As we take a look at the numbers, the multipliers themselves are not particularly impressive. As you can see at level 7, it's hitting for 108, 93%, and then 134%. Again, not particularly impressive, especially considering the multipliers of more recent heroes. However, Klee's charge attack multipliers aren't too shabby. At the same level 7, it is hitting for about 236%. So you can obviously see that Klee's kit is really revolving around doing charge attacks, as it is the case with a lot of other different catalyst users. Take note, however, that Klee's normal attack chain is relatively long, so if you're planning to play her as the team's main DPS, you'll need to start practicing cancels to push out the maximum amount of damage. Now next, let's move on to Klee's elemental skill, Jumpy Dumpty. When activated, Klee will throw a large Jumpy Dumpty that will bounce 3 times, dealing AoE pyro damage each time it bounces. On the 3rd bounce, Jumpy Dumpty will split into Minefield. When enemies get too close, mines will explode and deal AoE pyro damage once more. So again, we are looking at relatively underwhelming numbers, thanks to the fact that recent characters are, they have spoiled us with their crazy multipliers, but by no means does this mean that Klee is weak. As you can see, at level 7, the Jumpy Dumpty damage is at 142%. That applies to each bounce, while the mines that scatter on the 3rd bounce deal about 49% each. So you'll notice that the cooldown is quite long at 20 seconds, but this is somewhat offset by the fact that the mines themselves will stay on the field for 15 seconds. What makes this skill so good though is that it works on a charge system similar to Sucrose's own elemental skill. This means Klee is able to really take advantage of the 4-piece Crimson Witch set, more on that later on. And so for every 20 seconds you will get 1 charge, and so you can actually chain these quite well. Last but not least, we have Klee's elemental burst, sparks, and splash. When activated, Klee will continuously summon Sparks and Splash to deal AoE pyro damage at set intervals for a total of 10 seconds. Now at a glance, the burst doesn't look incredibly powerful, but do keep in mind that the burst does fire multiple times over the 10-second duration. It also has a fairly short cooldown at 15 seconds, as well as a standard energy cost of 60. So that means with the proper setup, you can actually have this up rather quick. So as soon as it ends, you just have to wait 5 seconds, and then you can go use it again. Right about now, I'm sure some of you guys are thinking, hey, Klee's numbers kinda look bad, and her overall, damage potential seems underwhelming. And to that I say, this was from a very long time ago, and so when you compare her to newer characters like Hu Tao or Eula, it's kind of understandable that the multipliers won't be as high as we're starting to get used to see it. But Klee is still definitely capable of big damage when equipped with the right artifact sets. And with that, for most Klees, you'll want to give her a 4-piece Crimson Witch set. As we talked about earlier, the charge system on Jumpy Dumpty allows Klee to increase her pyro damage bonus quite a bit. So that means by using 2 charges straight off the bat, you're able to kind of maximize the 4-piece bonus. Now, if you've been unlucky when it comes to artifact farming, you can always use a 2-piece split between Crimson Witch and Gladiator's Finale. So the idea here is that this is definitely just a placeholder build where you will eventually replace the Gladiator set with another 2 pieces of Crimson Witch of Flames. Now, unless you have rolled incredibly well and you've been very lucky where the stats are insane, you can obviously keep that 2-piece split and call it a day. Now, in case you're wondering, Klee is permanently infused with Pyro, as is the case with all other Catalyst users. So she is actually one of the few characters who can really benefit from using a 4-piece Lava Walker set. Now obviously, since she's dealing Pyro damage every time she attacks, the uptime on the 4-piece bonus is essentially 100%. Now you can use this option if you have some nice pieces with great substats. Otherwise, it's just okay. Alternatively, Klee can also be built as a fantastic Pyro support character, since her charge attacks generate energy for the entire team when she lands a crit. In this case, you still want to use the sets mentioned earlier, although you're obviously very much welcome to use other sets such as Noblesse sets and Wanderer's Troops and all those other more common sets that you would put on your support characters. It's really up to you and your playstyle and what you kind of want Klee to do. Just make sure that you're trying to maximize your crit rate so that you can use like the most important part of her kit as a support character. Alright? That's what you're going to need in order to turn Klee into an energy particle battery for your team. And of course, artifacts are only half the equation, so you'll need to give her a catalyst that she can take full advantage of. Fortunately, Klee's kit makes her compatible with a wide range of options. Now for starters, the 5-star catalysts, we can always go ahead and get the Lost Prayer to the Sacred Winds. This I feel like is the #1 choice simply because the secondary stat is crit rate percentage. The base attack is actually really quite high, and this is the #1 choice in terms of 5 stars. If you have it, this is what you give your Klee. If you don't have that, you have the other one called the Skyward Atlas. This is also pretty good because of the passive that actually gives you a flat elemental damage bonus increase, as well as the occasional 160% attack damage every 30 seconds. Now, you can't go wrong with either one, so go ahead and use the one that you have. It's very likely that one of these weapons will be on the weapon banner. We don't know just yet because as of recording, there hasn't been an official announcement yet. But if you have either the Lost Prayer or the Skyward Atlas, you're good. You don't need to pull on the weapon banner. Now, for more accessible options, we can always take a dip into the Battle Pass weapons. The Solar Pearl comes with decent base attack and crit rate second stat. Its passive is also pretty good for Klee. So if you generally tend to buy the Battle Pass weapons, the Solar Pearl is a fantastic choice to pick up. From the gacha, we have the Widsith as well. This is another great 4-star choice. It does have crit damage, which is only truly really important to stack as high as possible if you're going to make your Klee your main DPS. Otherwise, the stat is good to have, but not entirely like must have. However, the passive ability is actually pretty good in that Klee is going to be happy with whatever she gets. So you still have this element of randomness, you still have an element of RNG, but at the same time, not really, because Klee can always happily take the attack increase, the elemental damage increase, and the elemental mastery increase and call it a day, wipe enemies' butts, and all that. Now, as for free-to-play options, we will get this one. It's called the Dodoko Tales. This is going to be accessible through a quest, so you will be able to R5 this quite quickly, as long as you play the event, a lot. So again, as a free-to-play option, this is not bad. Attack percentage secondary stat decent, 41 base attack relatively low. However, the special passive is actually pretty nice since it increases charge attacks when you use your normal attacks, and the charge attacks will increase your attack by 8%. So obviously that's going to increase as you refine it further, and so it really homes in on what you kind of want to do with your Klee anyway. Now, the only other free play option that I can suggest right now is the Mapa Mare. So this one, it uses Elemental Mastery, which is actually pretty good since you definitely want Klee to take advantage of, you want Klee to be the one to cap elemental reactions such as Melt and Vaporize and all of that. Now, as you'll see here, the passive is triggering an elemental reaction, grants an 8% elemental damage bonus for 10 seconds. And so this is actually really very good with Klee, especially when she's paired with characters like Ganyu, who can repeatedly apply certain, an element while they're off of the field. And so you're able to trigger this a lot more than expected. And since you want to trigger elemental reactions when you're playing with Klee, Elemental Mastery goes a long way. However, keep in mind that the Mapa Mare is a weapon that you craft using Catalyst prototypes, and due to the RNG nature of weekly boss fights, you might have a little bit of trouble refining this weapon higher, but with enough grind, you eventually will. Now that we've discussed Klee's stats, skills, and builds, it's time for the verdict: pass or pull. Unfortunately, as much as I love Klee, I think Klee is a pass for majority of the player base. There's two reasons for this. First is how power creep has knocked her down a peg in both potential roles. If you successfully summoned Hu Tao, you should be fine in terms of pyro DPS. Yan Fei is also very capable as a pyro DPS, and as a 4-star, she is much more accessible, and therefore you can unlock more of her constellations easier. On the other hand, as a pyro support, you'll find it difficult to justify using Klee over characters like Bennett and to an extent even Xiangling. Both offer a lot more flexibility and value in terms of their skills. Particularly, Bennett has a lot more utility, while Xiangling is capable of passive damage in terms of, being able to apply pyro over and over again, even if she's not on the field. So unless you're willing to bring one of those two supports and Klee as your two pyro units on your team, it's very hard to justify actually replacing those two support characters. So as you can see, Klee is a little stuck behind a few people in terms of both her possible roles, but this doesn't mean that Klee is terrible. Just because she's 3rd or 4th in the list in terms of pyro DPS doesn't mean she can't pull off crazy numbers. This is especially true if you prefer to build melt and /or vaporize teams. If you are a newer player and don't have a pyro DPS, Klee can definitely carry you through a lot of content. Now, the second reason is that we're about to enter another rough patch when it comes to banners. Of course, I'm talking about Kazuha being on the same patch. I think Kazuha is really pretty good as both a DPS and support, so that kind of knocks Klee again, because they kind of share that dual role, dual build kind of thing. I think Kazuha, however, is the better option between the two. There's also the matter of patch 1.7 leaks. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into that. If you're interested in taking a look at the patch 1.7 rumors, you can go check that out. There's a lot of people who cover that on YouTube. But in summary, there is a possibility that the patch will feature 2 new 5-stars. And, it's going to be difficult because those 2 5-stars are rumored to be both Yoimiya and Ayaka. Now, Ayaka, obviously everyone is very hyped about her. She has been teased ever since the game was launched. She is a cryo sword user. On the other hand, Yoimiya also happens to be a pyro 5-star. And so this really puts the Klee rerun in a very difficult spot. So, of course, those are just leaks, and leaks should always be taken with a grain of salt. Personally, I think MiHoYo won't release 2 new banners in the same patch again for a while. It has happened before early on, but maybe not. But, we should always keep this possibility in the back of our minds as we strategize on which banners to pull for. Now, if it does prove to be true and we get 3 new characters one after the other, this will really put a strain on most people's primogems stashes and even their wallets. So for most players, most especially the free-to-plays, we will all really need to give our pulls a lot more thought than we would usually do. Now, those 2 reasons combined are what make it very difficult for me to tell people to go ahead and wish for Klee. On a general level, she is a pass. As they always say, good things come to those who wait. And I think the upcoming Kazuha and Leak banners are definitely worth the wait. You should only really wish for Klee if you still don't have a Pyro DPS or Pyro support. Now, if you are still on the fence on whether you should wish for Klee or not, make sure to join me for the next summon stream. We'll be wishing on Klee's banner and testing her out live on June 9 here on my YouTube channel, so you can see her in action and make the decision for yourself. And that's gonna do it for this Pastor Poll video. If you found this helpful, please don't forget to leave a like and to subscribe to the channel. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Until the next video, stay epic.